Yeah, so these are all the studies we've ran so far. I just kept it for record keeping. You can delete them if you want. Typically what I do to run an experiment is once you're on this website, you have create, manage, and develop. I go to create. If this is a brand new, even with a brand new experiment, you can probably just use one of these as a template if it's close enough. But I named it ABCD memory. That's these on the left are just the project names. These aren't what's shown to participant. Participants would be shown something like this: complete decision-making task, or whatever you want to name it. So we would copy this. We could leave it as that. Just brief descriptions, some keywords so people can find it. I kind of just threw a big net because some people do search experiment studies, psychology and whatnot. Because some people that do this, they have basically these little browser plugin bots that they define some keywords and it'll basically scrape MTurk every time a hit is detected and put it into their log. And those are usually done by keywords or, decision-making tasks, that kind of thing. Reward per response, 1 cent. Number of respondents, what was it, 200?
Well, if it was 60 in each condition, it's 240, but.
Yeah, but respondents is only for people that actually submit.
Okay, respondents is only for people that submit.
Yes. And we give them a basically a survey code box at the very end of the experiment, and they put that in there. It'll take anything. So if they just put whatever in the box and then hit submit, it'll submit. But we have like 3 or 4 hours to reject their work. But typically it's more of a hassle just to give them the send. Time allotted per worker. The timer starts when they accept the hit. So if it's a longer study, you have to think about some people will accept these hits as part of a larger queue of work that they do. So you kind of want to give them enough time, but not a whole lot of time so they can sit on it all day. Because I think last or 2 Christmases ago, I think when we were running some stuff, I had like a 4-hour timer on this stuff, and waiting for those last 4 or 5 people was kind of excruciating because they would just sit on it and then 4 hours later, someone else would take it and they would sit on it too. So 2 hours, I think, is generous enough for an hour experiment. It gives them an hour to get everything else done. For the people most people that if it does go over, they will switch tabs and then submit it with their MTurk ID. And they'll send an email saying, hey, this was about to expire. Here's my MTurk ID. It allows us to pay them, but it also allows us to verify that their work was actually done. So the survey code won't line up there, but they try to, they want to get paid. That's the whole idea behind this stuff. So they'll do whatever they can to do it. It makes life somewhat easier. In some cases, if they don't, and then they send emails saying, give me my money, there is really no way we can do that without them having submitted something for us. So if it's someone that's previously done work for us, you can look at one of our previous experiments and search their MTurk ID and try paying them that way. Otherwise, you'll have to create a special hit just for them and reject all of their work. And you'll have to, let them know, hey, I posted this hit, just submit it, and then pay them their bonus that way. It's a lot of extra work, but if you really care about paying the people, for their time, you do that. So you'll see on here that it says like special hit for MTurk ID. And that's how you do that. I have it set to auto pay people in 3 hours. This is what kind of makes it more hands off, so you don't got to go in and prove everything multiple times a day. 3 hours. I mean, if you just want to check every now and then, just to make sure that people are the survey, could they have a? I can probably show that real fast. So you can just do a quick. This is what the survey codes look like. They look like hash. As long as they look somewhat like that, you can just kind of be like, okay, cool. The system will approve you later on the day, or you could just do it yourself by checking all the boxes and hitting approve. And the reject button's the same way. Check the boxes that don't look, or people that just put in something, and because there are some people that will just submit it and hope they get lucky. But if it looks right, every now and then, if you want to check it out, that's typically how I do it. Otherwise, you can just let it run throughout the night. So down here is where the worker requirements are. Lately, since MTurk recently opened up to the wide world of a bunch of Asian and South Asian countries, or Southeast Asian countries, I noticed on one of the prior experiments we ran, the data was heavily skewed towards one area of the globe. And the data didn't line up. That was with one of those lotto tasks. So you can add in a free qualification of just relegating everything to the United States if you want. Otherwise, you can open it up. This will take a little bit longer, but if you open it up to the world, you'll have your 200 people in probably a couple hours, aside from a couple stragglers on waiting for the people to finish the hits. You could hide it, private and hidden, if you want to make it to where only people with a qualification can see it. The issue with doing that is a lot of these qualifications are opt-in, not opt-out. So if they don't take a qualification test, they won't know that they need a qualification to actually do the thing. So I usually make it public. So if they do see it and they feel like they qualify, they can go take a test, qualify for it, and come do it. There are premium qualifications. This is where you can start, getting age groups, but they have a list. So if there's really a certain subsample that you want to have, you could probably find it, and it has all the costs, and this is cost per participant. So you can figure the cost that you're paying them, the bonus, the fee on the payment, which is just going to be $0.01. So it's $0.01 to pay them, and the fee is $0.01. And then you have your bonus, and then a 20% fee on the bonus. And then there's 30 cents a flat fee after everything has been taxed. But like everything else, these are also opt-in tests that they have to complete first, saying that, hey, I have this qualification. So you could be limiting your sample by doing this, but it's useful. Yeah. So after that, we go to design layout. This design layout is somewhat custom. You can go to JTOS, and when you create it, so now that we're at this step, we want to create a batch in JTOS. And this is where all the data, and this is how MTurk and JTOS communicate. So we create a batch. We'll just call it whatever we want. I usually try to somewhat make it recognizable. How many people I'm looking for, what it is. I want to have run twice. Great. And then we create that. So batch session data, nothing there. No one's taken it yet. But then we hit this drop down, and we want to make sure that we have MTurk worker selected. This will allow people for MTurk to access the server. Otherwise, you'll be getting emails saying, hey, I have this error. It's not letting me in. And then for good measure, you can just check the rest. This general worker will allow people, whoever has a link. So these are the links I usually send out to people. Anybody that has that link can take the test or take the survey or experiment. But now that we have MTurk work selected, we go to source code. You can, if you really want, you can just copy and paste this whole thing and hit source on MTurk and just copy and paste the whole thing into here. The only issue with doing that is I added in some extra text saying, hey, if you complete this before, it won't let you run again, because if someone has tried, multiple people have tried doing it, and then they get eared out by JTOS saying, hey. And then another important piece, because some people may habitually refresh the page, and that will also lock them out of the experiment as well. You can turn this off, but I usually keep it to where if they refresh the page, it just kicks them out. Because if they refresh, it'll start them back at the very beginning. Yeah, the survey code, and this is what the button they click to start the task. So I made it to where all you have to do is change a couple of these variables down to the very bottom. And those variables are the study path number. Uh-oh. The study path number, which is 79. And it's already 79 because the study path numbers will always stay the same within an experiment. So if you have doggy A, B, C, D, and you just make different batches, it'll always stay 79. The only thing that will change is this batch ID right here. I probably could have made this a little easier and just have some variables at the top to change. But then you look for batch ID, which is right here, which is 107. And then you take 107, change that to 107. So now you have study path, you have the batch ID, and this is the URL. So if you ever have to create a new experiment from scratch and you don't copy anything over, this is the URL. This is also what you can just copy and paste into the browser to access JTOS like we normally do. Yeah, so once those variables are changed, you can just hit source, just do a quick overview. Oh, also, I don't think this has to change, but there is some text up at the very top right here. So all this text right here is this stuff right here, which is just some very basic introduction to say, hey, this is what you're going to be doing. I try being as specific as possible, just to let people know up front what they're going to be doing, kind of give them a breakdown by time, by component. So, hey, you're going to have to do a survey. It's going to take 1 to 5 minutes. And then a decision-making part that has, decision-making task with 2 parts. So this is what you would change. And then you go to preview. And if you hover over, click here to start, at the very bottom left of the window, you'll see the URL. And you just want to make sure that those are the values you want to see. So public 79, batch ID 107. And that kind of gives you an idea of this should work actually if I hit it. Yeah, so it links up, just unknown worker type. And that should, after that, it should be good to go. So we would just hit finish. And now it's ready to run, and to actually publish it, we go to publish batch. It's going to make you review it again, make sure everything looks nice. Go to next. It's going to give you how many people you want, how long it's going to run for 7 days before it expires automatically. People get 3 hours, or people auto approved after 3 hours, and how much it's going to cost after fees. So 200 people, $4 in base pay.
So do you have an HTML file with these JavaScript files, or?
They are all in one.
They're all in one, okay.
So it's HTML, and then it swaps over to script.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You declare it HTML and then script. You say no script for, okay.
Yeah, no script, this is just for people that have JavaScript disabled. It'll just give them a pop-up saying, hey, turn it on.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Yeah, but otherwise it'll continue through here, and everything is saved. Kind of like what I saw on that Qualtrics thing you had. Everything is basically in its own array or vector, and at the very end it transforms it into a data frame, pushes all the data at once, and then saves it as a JSON. So same
Cool,
thing.
yeah.
The screen. So when you log on under the Manage tab, you can see a quick view of it. It'll say, how much time has elapsed, but it also give you this little progress bar. And if you click on it, it'll give you even more information if you really want it. The only thing it won't tell you is if people have taken, if people have actually accepted it.
So what do we have to do like now when it's running? Do we gotta monitor?
So to monitor it, you would go to worker batch, and then you can look at results. And it looks like we already have 13 people that's accepted and started. So what this will do is now that people are actually starting, you can take a little look-see. They gave consent, and it tells you the condition that they're posted to. So this person was in a control condition, and it says none, but once they finish it, this will update and show their actual data. Yeah, and you can filter by message or state. And these are their actual MTurk IDs. So this is how, like in a second, I'll show you how I pay people. But these are their actual MTurk IDs that they, so these are valid for payment. But data retrieved, it'll have a couple different types. It'll have like data retrieved, finished, failed, and it'll give you usually an error message of how it failed. Most of the time it's reloaded or quit. It also give you time elapsed if you're curious. It'll keep ticking sometimes, so you'll see some people like 2 days or a couple hours on it because it's out as long as they're on the server. So even though MTurk will cut them off after 2 hours, our server won't. Our server will just let them sit there forever until it times them out eventually. But I forgot what I set the timeout to on these. So that is that. Yeah, now we have 31, so it'll be done quick.
Wow.
Wow. That's where you just clicked on was results, or?
Yes. So you go to the batch we just made.
Yeah.
And then you can click on results.
Okay.
Is it always that fast?
Depends, really. Yeah. The bigger the sample, the more people get it at once. But if you have a smaller sample, like you want 50 people, it might go pretty quick, but it also, you'll have those people that just sit on it for a bit. You can monitor it here. And then if you go to batch system data, you can kind of keep an eye on the distribution of different conditions that have gone through. So if one of them starts to get kind of low and they don't look like they've been here, you can filter by that stuff. Okay, so now that that is done, I have a toy example with the last bit of data, those 15 sample. So this is what the data will actually look like when it's done. Subject number, it'll have choice, which is just 1 through 4. Yeah, 1 through 4. Whether or not it was the best option, I forgot what I labeled that, but I think it's just, did they choose the most frequent or most memorable? I think it's based on the condition. Whether they got it right or not, which is just reward. I just left it in there. Reaction time, probability for the choice they chose, whether or not a probe was shown, or what type of probe that actually was, I think. So I think it's like repeat. So was it a novel probe or was it a repeat? And then the probe type, which is I think a value from 1 to 4 as well. Just denoting, was it a probe? Was the probe like A, B, C, or D? And then the other column is, was it a repeat? And how many trials back was that image if it was a actual previously seen probe? There we go. Phase, the actual image, if you're curious and want to run some analyses on the actual images. Demographics, so female, gender, race, ethnicity, MTurk ID, and what their bonus was.
Okay. So the bonus would be what we would need to pay them?
Yes. So this script, which I can probably send your way, Katie, if you want.
Oh yeah, send that to me too, I guess.
It needs a little bit of editing per experiment, just for like random things like demographics, bonuses, and MTurk IDs, or if there's certain things that are kind of finicky with the data frame. But this should work for nearly all experiments. Just to give a rundown what it does, it reads in the text file, creates a blank data matrix list. It reads all the lines as raw data, and then it takes the number of components and divides the raw data by that to get a number of how many participants there were. And then it basically runs through a loop for each sub or each subject and each component. And it basically extracts the data for each participant and then concatenates it after putting it into a data frame right here.
Awesome.
And concatenates it here. And if you have multiple components, this little portion will just save each component as its own CSV file. And then I have another piece somewhere on here that'll just extract the subnum and MTurk ID. and figure the bonus amount. So you'll get basically just 3 columns of bonus, MTurk ID, subject number, and that is what's going to be used for paying people.
Aston, real quick question. Where did you download that text file with the data from? Was that on JTOS?
Yes, yes. Here we go. Up to 62.
Wow.
So I go to, for the pilot sample that we ran, you go to results, or any batch you're done with, go to results. I filter it by finished by hitting the little button right here. It'll filter it, and then you can go through and just select all the ones you want.
Okay.
And what that'll pop out is a file.
And then you clicked exported results after that?
Yes. So you hit export results and then hit selected.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'll just look.
So is this done even if you're doing that automatic payment through MTurk?
You have to do it, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is the only way to get the payment amounts, which is kind of unfortunate.
Oh, so why is it, so this is how you know how much to pay them?
Yes. So I
And
have
then-
a single field right here
Uh-huh.
that has their bonus amount. So the program itself, I have the actual experiment compute the bonus at the end and save the bonus amount. So all this script does is it basically parses all the information, then saves the bonus amount as its own column.
Okay. So then what is that MTurk automatic payment?
That is a Python script that I wrote that I'll also send your way. And
So you said we
Well,
still
panic
need to pay these bonuses even though
yes,
they're automatic?
so it's automatic in the sense of how you would normally do it is, so if we go to manage, it looks like we already had one person finish. So once everything, so we would click on their name. So if you want to manually pay these people, you have to click on their name, bonus worker, and then type in their bonus. There is no confirmation. You just hit the button, it pays them. So if you fat thumb an extra 0, they're going to be really happy. There's no way to get the money back. So this is how I initially did it for when we ran all those earlier studies. I had to go through, basically had an Excel sheet on one side that I color coded, who I've paid and who I haven't paid. And I went through these entire lists one by one. I got really annoyed with doing that. So I spent, a day and I wrote a Python script. So what this does is we take that extracted Excel sheet or those extracted files, we upload it as an Excel sheet. So now we have their MTurk ID. We have how much they're going to get paid, and we have their subject number. So what we then do is over here, on this same page, it looks like we had another person. You go to download CSV. So I'll do this on the previous one we ran. Memory. Download CSV. It's going to take a second. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us MTurk. So we have our version of the results with their MTurk ID and all their information. So now what we're doing is we're downloading Amazon's own files, which has the hit ID, the hit type ID, the assignment ID, and their worker ID, which is basically their MTurk ID. The only two things we really care about on this are these two right here, the assignment ID and worker ID. So you can extract those, put in the Excel sheet with the worker ID and the bonus amount, make sure to sort both columns independently. And then you can check to make sure that the worker IDs line up with our file. And then in the script that I wrote, you will need to have Anaconda or Python, some version of Python. I use Anaconda because it installs everything at once and it gives you Jupyter Notebook, which is what you're seeing here. And you'll need to import or install Boto 3. And I have like all this information will have this. And I think that document I sent you, Daryl, has more detailed information about setting all this up. So just get each cell. Since we're live, we're going to make sure that's client. And then just to check to make sure everything works in Python. So here's the bonus data. And this is what it ends up looking like. This is the format I kind of use. So here's our Excel sheet that we extracted from the data. So you have the subject number, MTurk ID, and bonus amount. And then here's the information we grabbed from the Amazon website from their data. So we have the assignment ID and worker ID. Just to check, I usually have another verification column where I just compare the two text strings just to make sure that the MTurk IDs are lined up properly. And then after that, we can have a couple more cells that just compute the bonus amount and totals, how much the fees are going to cost, and the total amount's going to cost, what the balance should be after we pay everybody, and just a couple more things. Just to confirm that everything is working properly, this cell will tell you how many people there are. If it's not the right length, you may have to look back and make sure that everything is right in the code above. And this cell will just extract the very first person, just so you can kind of confirm that everything is working correctly. Because once you start this cell, this is where the funds start flowing out of the account. So what this will do is this is basically a large loop that'll loop through the entire data frame from 1 to however many people you have and pay everybody individually. So this is why I say it's automatic, because you're not having to thumb through 200 pages manually importing stuff. You just make an Excel sheet, run this loop, and it'll give you a verification code right here. Just detailing that every single one of these people has been paid, what time they've been paid, request ID, and everything else. Once you get all the data done, toss it in R, it'll parse it, and it's one of these. I'll find it. Yeah, main task. This one right here. This one. Yeah, this
So is this what you're doing, like that says they get paid in like less than a day?
Kind of.
How often do you do that?
It depends on how long a study is. If it's like a 50-person study, like those LATOS studies we were running, and it's done in a couple hours, then yeah.
Okay.
I just run the script, and I'll just say it's a lot faster. It's a lot faster to get the CSV file together than it is to spend like 3 or 4 hours thumbing through all those participants and making sure that everything's correct. And
so do you wait until it's all done? Because would that see people who are still in progress and pay them? Okay.
You can pay people like in chunks if you want, but you'll have to keep track of that somehow. Okay. I usually just wait till it's all done and do it at once.